Well, good day, everyone, and thank you for joining today's call. I'm Tiffany Cope with the Business Operations Team with the Department of City Planning, and we welcome you to today's meeting. This meeting will be recorded. First, I would like to acknowledge any council members or other city officials we may have with us today. Are there any?
It's Matt Westmoreland is here, and you have unmuted me. I enjoyed watching your last meeting, and good to be back for a drama-free meeting this time.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure thing.
Okay, Madam Chair, you may proceed when ready.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. And Matt, good to see/hear from you. Good afternoon. Today's Friday, January 29th, 2021. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to the City of Atlanta Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee virtual meeting, rescheduled from January 20th, 2021. My name is Malloy Peterson, and I'm chair of the committee. This is a 5-member advisory committee appointed by the mayor and the Atlanta City Council. The purpose of the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee, pursuant to the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Part 3, Part 6, Chapter 4, and Section 6-5008 is as follows. First, to serve in an advisory capacity to assist and advise the Atlanta City Council with regard to the adoption of an amendment to the city's Development Impact Fee Ordinance or any new development impact fee ordinance. Second, to receive the annual report as required by OCGA 36-71-8D2, and if warranted upon review of the annual report, submit a written report to the Atlanta City Council of any perceived inequities in the expenditure of impact fees collected for roads, streets, bridges, including rights of way, traffic signals, landscaping, or any local components of state or federal highways. And third, pursuant to OCGA 36-71-5C, no action of the committee shall be considered a necessary prerequisite for action by the Atlanta City Council in regard to the adoption of a development impact fee ordinance. Until further note, the meetings of the City of Atlanta Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee will meet virtually via Zoom. We ask for your patience in the event of any technical difficulties that may cause committee members to experience a lost or interrupted connection. Staff has muted all microphones, and we ask that all participants remain muted for the duration of the meeting unless you have been recognized by the chair. This will minimize background noise and feedback and ensure that all participants can hear comments clearly. For the benefit of anyone who's called in, I will ask committee members to please identify yourselves each time you speak, make or second a motion, or vote. Public comment received via the COA impact fees at atlantagA.gov mailbox received up to 1 hour before each meeting will be read by staff during the public comment period and posted online via the impact fee update webpage. At this point, I will take roll call to confirm a quorum and to call the meeting to order. Jim Brown.
Yes.
Jim Brown's present. Rod Teachy.
Present.
Kevin Green.
Present.
Stacy McCoy.
Present.
And Malloy Peterson present. With 5 members present, we do have a quorum and we will proceed to the meeting. A copy of the agenda for today's website meeting was sent to committee members and can be found on our website. Staff will type the link into the chat. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Rod, when you guys say anything, will you say your name first? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Rod Teachy, so moved.
Stacy McCoy, second.
Thank you. Seeing as we have a second, we'll take a vote on the approval of the agenda. Jim Brown? Jim, do you approve the agenda?
I approve the agenda, yes.
Rod Teachy?
Approve.
Kevin Green?
Approve.
And Malloy Peterson, I vote yay. The motion carries with a vote of 5 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the December 16th, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Kevin Green, so moved.
Stacy McCoy, second.
Seeing that we have a second, we will take a vote on approval of the December 16th, 2020 meeting minutes. Jim Brown, Jim Brown, yay or nay? on the
Approved.
minutes?
Yay.
Okay. Roger Teachy,
Approve.
Kevin Green,
Approve.
Stacy McCoy,
Approved.
and Malloy Peterson vote yay. The motion carries with 5 yeas, 0 nays. Now staff will read the public comment received via the COA impact fees mailbox.
Thank you. Our first public comment comes from Ms. Tiffany Hogan with D.R. Horton, and it reads as follows. Dear Commissioner Keene and committee members, as a committed development partner in the City of Atlanta, any changes to policies and ordinances that affect building and development are critically important to us. We appreciate the months of research via the impact fee study and the opportunities made available by the committee builders, developers, and community members to have input during this process. As the committee intends to vote and submit final recommendations to the City Council for consideration, we want to ensure that the below key items are defined and addressed in those recommendations. Implementation and fee structure. We recommend the committee consider a phased-in incremental increase of 20% each year over the next 5 years. There have been no increases to impact fees in nearly 30 years. Therefore, while a 2-year phase-in as currently recommended is appreciated, a 5-year phase-in is much more practical. Additionally, with the city also considering changes to the tree protection ordinances, stormwater fees, and residential design standards, builders and developers must not only consider the effect of an impact fee increase, but the others previously listed as well. Housing affordability. As discussed above, the City of Atlanta is currently considering changes to impact fees, tree protection ordinances, stormwater fees, and residential design standards. These all contribute to the increased cost of construction and are essentially counter to the city's affordable housing efforts. Therefore, serious consideration should be given to provide 100% exemption for all residential units, whether for sale or rental. Effective date. Staff should recommend a date not less than 6 months from the adoption date of the ordinance for the ordinance to take effect. Grandfather clause. Consider a grandfather clause for any projects already zoned or for which a rezoning application has been filed before the effective date of the impact fee ordinance, where the fees will be vested under the city's current fee structure. Again, we appreciate the committee's significant time invested in research regarding an increase in impact fees, the transparency in the process, and the opportunity for builder, developer, and community input. We hope that consideration will be given to our above recommendations. We look forward to continuing to be a key partner in the development of the City of Atlanta. Our next public comment comes from Mr. Michael Paris and Joseph Santero with the Council for Quality Growth. Dear Commissioner Keene and committee members, the Council for Quality Growth is a not-for-profit trade association representing over 300 companies comprised of architects, attorneys, contractors, developers, engineers, financial executives with a vested interest in quality growth and development in the City of Atlanta. The Council for Quality Growth appreciates the opportunity to engage with the City of Atlanta since the inception of the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee. We submitted our preliminary feedback from our membership on the updated impact fee structure on March 11, 2020, and the impact it would have on quality growth within the City of Atlanta. Alongside this letter, the March 2020 letter has also been attached as well for your reference. Since then, we have spoken informally with the city administrators, about our concerns with the proposed impact fee study recommendations and continue to obtain feedback from our membership. As DIFAC is aiming to take a vote on final recommendations, we appreciate the changes the committee is considering, and our organization is grateful for the opportunity to formally submit our final comments for consideration. Implementation. Consider a phased-in approach incrementally over 3 years with a 25% increase per year. The Council for Quality Growth recommends phasing in the impact fee increase incrementally over 3 years to match the rate of inflation from 1993 to 2021, which is currently at 80.26%. That would reflect a 25% increase in impact fees per year over the next 3 years and one additional 25% increase in the 4th year. We appreciate the staff's recommendation, but consider this phased-in approach much more amendable after a 30-year period with no increases. Grace period and grandfather clause. Provide a 6-month grace period upon adoption of the impact fee ordinance for residential and commercial developers that have already invested in the city but did not account for the financial burden on increased impact fee expenses. Consider a grandfather clause for any projects that have been zoned or have filed for a permit with the Office of Planning and Zoning within the prior 12 months or have filed for rezoning before the adoption date of the impact fees be vested under the city's current impact fee structure. Housing affordability. Provide a 100% exemption for affordable housing rental units to match the for sale units and economic development exemptions. The Council for Quality Growth supports Atlanta's efforts to mitigate the affordable housing crisis and the increased demand for housing. Local regulations such as impact fees, tree protection ordinances, storm water fees, residential design standards all contribute to the increased cost of construction, making it financially infeasible to build affordable housing developments and consequently decrease the supply of housing. We continue to have concerns from our office and commercial development members regarding the changes to remove the tiered sliding scale based structure. The city's current impact fee structure for office and commercial has a sliding scale based upon square feet. This structure has worked well in the past, and the sliding scale is commensurate with the economics of individual projects. The Council for Quality Growth applies all efforts from the City of Atlanta and the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee to update the City of Atlanta's impact fees. The Council for Quality Growth continues to stand ready to serve as a resource to the city to incorporate a revised impact fee structure that does not infringe on quality development within the City of Atlanta. And our final public comment comes from Mr. Corey Deal with the Greater Atlanta Home Builders Association, and it reads as follows. Dear Advisory Committee, the Greater Atlanta Home Builder Association has been closely monitoring the discussions and recommendations from this committee regarding the City of Atlanta's impact fee update. With the understanding of the need for an administrative change due to COVID-19, we greatly appreciate the City of Atlanta's Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee, council members, and Commissioner Tim King for allowing builders, developers, and community members to provide input on the proposed impact fee change. As such, GABA recommends the following recommendations for consideration. Number 1, the fee increase should take a gradual approach of phasing in over 5 years instead of the recommended 2 years, with a 20% increase each year. Number 2, ensure that the single-family housing can take advantage of the opportunity for a waiver. Number 3, ensure the term used for affordable can be used with single-family housing and not based on the low-income housing tax credit or other programs that is not used for single-family development. The definition should be based upon the sales price of the house, which the city can verify. Number 4, consider a grandfather clause for any projects already zoned or for which a rezoning application has been filed before the effective date of the impact fees, where the fees will be vested under the city's current fee structure. And number 5, staff should recommend a date no less than 6 months from the adoption date of the ordinance for the ordinance to take effect. The Greater Atlanta Home Builders Association appreciates the City of Atlanta's Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee's willingness to consider our recommendations that impact our members and their customers, and for considering recommendations on effective processes and procedures that we feel will move Atlanta forward as housing demand increase. As the city continues to increase impact fees, expenses associated with the tree ordinance, and other fees that impact our residential construction costs, we ask that they all be considered as a whole rather than individually, in order to gain a clear picture of their combined impacts on the cost of constructing a residence. And Madam Chair, that concludes all public comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So next on our agenda, I will read the comments from the Department of Community Affairs, DCA, and the Atlanta Regional Commission, ARC, related to the October 2020 Impact Fee Study Draft, and a member of staff will read the recommended responses. We will then allow for comments from committee members. So the first DCA comment is a required revision. Please attach the schedule of improvements that was submitted within the 2020 City of Atlanta Annual CIE update to the CIE amendment document. Advisory revision. On page 9 OCGA section 32-124, highways, bridges, and ferries is cited to define public road. Citing the Georgia Code of Public Transportation in discussion of development impact fees may be confusing, since the code section cited clearly states that the definition is only applicable to Title 32. The Development Impact Fee Act, DIFA, is found in Title 36 of OCGA 36-71-1. DIFA specifies what can and cannot be funded and provides its own set of definitions. At present, as presented, this paragraph may be unintentionally misleading, as it indicates impact fees can fund all improvements contained in the definition cited in the text. We recommend removing this paragraph or changing its focus to reference the definition provided for DIFA. And for all services except for parks and recreations, we recommend affirmatively stating that the future level of service is intended to maintain the current level of service.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding DCA's comments to attach the CIE, we have complied and amended our draft submission to include the CIE schedule of improvements as required. Concerning DCA's advisory comments to remove Georgia Code Section 32's definition of public road and to clarify future level of service, we again have complied and informed DCA that we will make these recommended changes on the final draft of the impact fee study update. Our responses were accepted by DCA, and in turn, I'm pleased to announce we did receive approval from DCA to move forward towards adoption with the update. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any comments from committee members? And if so, when you have a comment, please click on participants at the bottom of the screen to use the raise hand feature if you'd like to be recognized to speak. Okay, our next agenda item relates to a vote on final recommendations or required changes to the draft impact fee study and ordinance update. Members have received a copy of these in advance and are prepared to discuss the final draft and take a vote on recommendations. I will read the recommendations that are up for a vote. We will open up for comments from committee members and then take a vote on the recommended response. Recommendation number 1. The preferred timeline to implement any fee changes associated with development impact fees. The current recommendation is 6 months from the date of adoption. Are there any comments from committee members? If so, please click on participants to use the raise hand feature found at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to be recognized to speak.
Yeah, this is Kevin. I don't see the raise hand thing, but I'm not technically adept. Can I just talk?
Sure.
All right, thanks. Can, before we get into these, the recommendations, can the staff please explain the process that was gone through to develop the staff recommendations, how they were developed, how they were vetted within the city? What was the process of doing that, both within Department of Planning and outside with other departments?
Thank you, Kevin. Kim, are you available to speak in depth about the surveys that were conducted?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Excuse me, Kimberly Talon, Department of City Planning. We put forth a couple of surveys that allowed input from the public from various factors of the city of Atlanta. We compiled those responses and put forth recommendations based on the replies that we got. Also, internally with departments that are part of managing the impact fee program. Does that kind of help in regards to how we got to the staff recommendations, or do you need anything further?
Yeah, I mean, I just was curious. How they were developed and who did it. I'm not sure if you can give me any more info on that. I know there was requests made for public comment, but were they shopped around with Invest Atlanta and others as applicable, or did they stay within Department of Planning, or how did that work?
No, we definitely did include the Invest Atlanta, definitely the builder community, the residential community, and general public as well, and our partner agencies throughout the city.
Okay.
So we, in terms of the schedule, we'll have a recommendation. Each one we can discuss. We can just take a vote if we have no discussion, but each one we can discuss, but we take a vote on the recommendation. If it were to say not pass, then they would note our comments that we've made in the discussion period. We wouldn't take a different vote, according to my understanding. Is that correct, Tiffany? Okay. All right, so I'll read recommendation number 1 again, and it's regarding the preferred timeline to implement any fee changes associated with development impact fees. So the recommendation that we're voting on, the current recommendation is to the timeline to be 6 months from the date of adoption. So we'll now, if there's no other comment, we'll now vote on recommendation number 1.
Hold on, sorry. Lord, I have my hand raised. I'm not sure if you haven't see that, but I would like to comment on this recommendation.
Go ahead.
So the challenge with this is that there could be deals in the pipeline now or deals in the pipeline that have been previously filed for permits based on the old development fees, which would therefore have those projections of those development costs based on old fees. So depending on the type of transaction that it is and how tight the financials are on that transaction, a raise in fees could potentially deem that that transaction no longer financially feasible. And I know we're talking about a 6-month period from the time of when the legislation will be passed, but a lot of times these permitting processes drag out and they can go 6 months, 9 months, or even a year. So I think we have to have some protection for those developments that have filed their development plans and permitting requests based on the current fees and not be impacted by future changes. So I would recommend we have some type of clawback grandfather clause where I would think 6 months should be reasonable, but I would certainly like to see if any of the other committee members have any comments on that.
Yeah, Rod, Malloy Peterson, I very much noted in the comments prior, the public comment prior to this, our discussion, and also just people who've been reaching out, that continues to come up. I think the way we're tackling it is we're tackling all of it with giving 6 months. Personally, I think it's hard to say just because you've rezoned your grandfathered, but I do think if you've put in for a permit, it may be a 6-month delay, or if you're in for permit, because if you're in for a permit and it takes longer than that. So I agree with you, Rod, that this could potentially be, have something added onto it that says if you've already, if you're grandfathered, if you're in for permit. What does the rest of the group think about that?
This is Kevin. I got to comment on this, and I guess the next one, and sort of anticipating the extended phase in. And just some thoughts on this from my perspective. These are impact fees, and they're meant to offset the strain on public infrastructure and services, transportation, parks, police, fire, that's caused by new development. I think we're all aware that these fees haven't been raised in almost 3 decades. So the goal is to catch up where developers are paying their fair share of the impact on public infrastructure and services that new development is causing. Meanwhile, we've got the city, which, is basically has got fees, in many cases, half of what a developer would pay to put the exact same project in a neighboring jurisdiction or a peer jurisdiction. That's through no fault of their own. They're paying what the city said to pay. So, I'm feeling that there's also a fiduciary duty to taxpayers here. Either developers pay a fair share or the city taxpayers pay, but somebody's paying. So, I understand. Well, and then I guess the other thought is, this committee's been meeting for what, 1.5 years, just on getting as far as we've gotten. You'd kind of have to be sitting under a rock somewhere to not know how the winds are blowing in terms of an increase to impact fees. So I question the need for grandfathering and extended phase in beyond what is recommended in the staff recommendations in terms of the public interest in deferring and grandfathering, unless we're talking about a specific class of projects, i.e. affordable projects, which is I think another conversation.
It's Rod Teachy, if I could just respond to that. So thanks, Kevin. What you're saying makes sense. I certainly agree with you with respect to the affordable housing developments, but I do feel that other developments could be equally impacted, and it may not have the same order of magnitude on the financial feasibility of those projects. And again, developments have been planned and structured to cover a certain fee. So we're almost kind of pushing back the goalposts on these developments that are already in the process. And I just don't think that's fair.
Since we're talking about the two together, because I think they do go together, Malloy Peterson, I apologize, I'm not following my own rules. But I'm sort of 50-50 in terms of, I do think most of these deals could figure it out in the 6-month period of time. So I think we're very close on that one. Does not worry me as much. But I would say I've had in the order of, organizations representing hundreds and thousands of people who continue to talk about a 5-year time frame, which I think is too long. But I do think that the 2-year time frame, I would love to see that be 3 years, a 3-year time frame instead of 2 years. So, and really, with on the whole, I think all of these recommendations generally are just really, really close. But, when you're thinking of the big developers, and their fees, you may think, well, everybody can handle this. But I would argue, and maybe Jim, you could comment on this, but Council Quality Growth is certainly all over this in home builders, but I personally do not see that even though we're having all these meetings, first it's been during a year with COVID and every other thing that comes with that. The organization, we've been very transparent, but I do think that there are plenty of deals out there that are underwritten that have not taken this into account. So I just think a 3-year period would be more appropriate. And that is from just, I haven't really personally gotten that much pushback. I think the development community says, we get this, we are going to pay more. We're not going to go against paying more, but that is a lot of increase in a 2-year period. So.
Hello, Stacy McCoy. I agree with Kevin that the taxpayers should not have the burden that they've had the burden for the last 30 years. But I can see the 3-year phase-in approach. I think doing a hybrid of both of these should help the developers as well as the taxpayers recouping their fair share.
Thanks, Stacy. Jim, do you have anything on this you'd like to add? Okay. Is there any more comment on recommendation number 1? And then Tiffany just asked sort of a point of clarification. We are only going to vote yay or nay on these. And then is it correct that any discussion we have will just go along to council and any of the other committees and whatnot in terms of what our general comments were?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, so I'll read it one last time. Recommendation 1 regarding the preferred timeline to implement any fee changes associated with development impact fees. The current recommendation is 6 months from the date of adoption. We'll now vote on recommendation number 1. Jim Brown? You there, Jim? All right, Kevin Green?
Approve.
Rod Teachy?
Approve.
Stacy McCoy?
Approve.
And I'm Lloyd Peterson, vote yay. So the recommendation carries with 4 yays and 0 nays. On recommendation 2, this is regarding the preferred method to implement the new fee structure. The current recommendation is to phase in over 2 years with 3 increases over the 2-year timeframe. Is there any comment from committee members? Okay, so we'll now vote on recommendation number 2. Kevin Green?
I would vote approve of number 2 as written.
Okay. Rod Teachy?
I don't approve.
Jim Brown? Oh, sorry, Rod, keep going.
Am I allowed to give comment, or is it yay or nay at this point?
Let's just say yay or nay now, and then,
Okay. It's a nay.
okay. Jim Brown? Okay, Stacy McCoy?
Approve.
Okay, and I'm Lloyd Peterson, vote nay. So the recommendation does not carry. Sorry. No, we have 2 nays and 2 yays, right? Guys, I'm sorry, I have a little COVID brain still. My apologies. Jim, would you like to, are you still there to be able to vote on this one? Okay, so I guess its recommendation is a tie with 2 yays and 2 nays. Rod, do you want to add on your comment?
Yes, I agree with your comments earlier that we should extend that to 3 years as opposed to 2 years.
That would be my comment as well. Okay, regarding recommendation number 3, how should we deal with near-term projects in progress that may be financially impacted by rate changes? The current recommendation is no special guidelines are needed due to the recommended 6-month grace period from the date of adoption. Are there any comments from committee members?
Yes, as I stated earlier, I do think there should be a grandfather clause, and at a minimum, should apply to affordable housing developments because they are significantly impacted by any type of increase in costs such that this would cause.
And Rod, what would you say that your suggestion is?
My suggestion would be that any development that has filed for actual permits for a specific development within 6 months prior to the adoption would also be exempt.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Kevin. Can I just ask a quick question
Sure.
here? So I assume you up or down the recommendations as they've been provided, and then there's a separate conversation around other proposed amendments that may modify those? Is that the way we're going to proceed?
Yeah, that's Tiffany. Yeah. So my understanding from my conversation with Tiffany before is that our vote and our comment will be heard by people like Councilmember Westmoreland as they take this up in consideration. So I guess our vote will be yay or nay with notes on the discussion notes with it.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So recommendation number 3, we'll vote on it. Noting Rod's comments, we are voting only on the current recommendation. No special guidelines are needed due to recommended six-month grace period from date of adoption. No, we'll now vote for recommendation number 3. Rod Teachy,
Nay.
Kevin Green,
Yay.
Jim Brown, Stacy McCoy.
Approve.
I'm Malloy Peterson, will vote yay. The recommendation carries with 3 yays, 1 nay. So recommendation number 4, and it will be noted, Rod's recommendation and suggestion surrounding affordable housing. Recommendation number 4, this is in regard to preferred single-family home, SFH, rate structure. Rates based on square footage or single flat rate for all single-family homes. The current recommendation, this is what I know we've talked about a lot, is for a flat rate fee structure. Are there any comments from committee members?
Rod Teachy, I do think it should be based on square footage. I know there are discussions that, because the cost or the fees are based on impact on the infrastructure. I mean, just common sense, if you have a 4,000 square foot house versus a 1,000 square foot house, you're probably going to have more people living in that house. You're probably going to have more cars associated with that house, and therefore you're going to have a higher level of usage of utilities. So I think it should be based on square footage and not a flat fee per house.
This is Kevin. I'm wondering if the staff can give us some background on why the staff recommendation broke the way it did.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna jump in here because I remember in our last discussion of this, you all, and maybe, I don't know if Tiffany or Kim, I don't know which one of you want to chime in on this, but I know you gave an example of what the spread would be, and it was something like $100. And so if you could add that to your answer.
I'm sorry, I was actually working to assist Jim back to the meeting, so I did not hear the question.
Question on that. Jim, did you lose your connection? Should we?
Yeah, he's back now.
vote? Should we allow Jim to vote on the ones that he missed due to his lost connection? What would be the?
Yes. Mhm.
Yes,
All right, so-
please.
Okay, go ahead and answer that question and we'll jump back in the,
So can you repeat the question, please?
you want to go, Kevin?
Yeah, I was just curious on the recommendation about preferred single family home rate structure based on square footage or a single flat rate. The staff recommended a flat rate structure. We were just curious as to what the reasoning was with the staff on that recommendation. And then I'm assuming that the revenue is kind of a wash, but Malloy, you had a question on that.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about this before, we went through this exact same conversation, and I remember you all saying that the difference was somewhere in the range of like $100, $150 max
Mhm.
difference spread between larger and smaller homes. And so you all were saying it's so much more expensive to run it in that way. So
Exactly. Yes, that's the correct. So because it was not that difference in those two options, administratively, the flat rate for single family was easier to manage, especially with considerations down the line that we would come back and revisit the entire program. And that way we can kind of better assess what it would take to offer the multi-tier.
So once you assess that, given that this committee stays along and that obviously between the city and council, there could be edits to this along the way, are you all trying to assess that recommendation now at a flat fee, or is the recommendation to do that, and potentially if it's cost effective to do it on a square foot basis in the future?
Okay, can you repeat your question? Kind of lost me there.
I was saying, I think you said something about assessing how difficult it would be to, if I heard you correctly, how difficult it would be to do the assessments on a square foot basis.
Yes.
One thing I was just throwing out there was, in a year or so, would you be able to tell us exactly how much more money we could collect, or what the differential would be, and then how much it would cost us to collect that money, if the case that's an edit we want to make, or council wants to make to the program in a year or further out in the future?
So just to kind of put realistic expectation on the timeline, it would be more around 3 to 5 years, because once we've gotten through this current update, we would have to wait until the state does their update. They're in the process of updating the impact fee program overall. And so once that is complete, then we will be in the position to do the major overhaul of the impact fee program. And at that time, we would have information that can kind of assist in that decision on whether or not we need to change from the single rate or the multi-tier. And so whatever information that we can gather along the way to help make that decision, we would definitely make a point to do so. But I don't think 1 year would be a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, I got it. I guess we'll say at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
You can't use square footage, I can tell you that. It just.
Do you want to share more, Jim, on that one?
Well, it's like trying to use square footage to buy a car. It just doesn't make any damn sense. I mean, you can have a house that's 1,200 feet that costs $80 a foot, and you can have a house or 2,000 feet that costs $80 a foot to build. And then I've built a 2,000 foot house that costs $150 a foot to build. So how are you gonna? It just doesn't work. It's like using zip codes to decide about price point.
Okay.
I mean, you can't do it. It's impossible.
All right, if there aren't any other comments, let me know. If not, what we'll do is vote for this one. Then we'll go back, since we lost Jim on the connection, and we'll have Jim vote back on the 3 that he missed. So I'll read this one last. This is regarding the preferred single family home rate structure. Discussion of whether it should be based on square foot or single flat rate. The current recommendation that we're voting on is that we will use a flat rate fee structure. So we'll take a vote on recommendation number 4. Rod Teachy?
Nay.
Jim Brown?
Jim, you're muted.
Mute. Nay.
What'd you say?
No.
You don't want to do flat rate. Okay. Kevin?
Approve as written, flat rate.
Stacy McCoy?
Approve.
And I, Malloy Peterson, will also vote yay. So that will be, the recommendation carries with 3 yays and 2 nays. Okay, Jim, we will go back very quickly through the ones that you missed. Starting with recommendation number 1, there was the discussion over when the preferred timeline to implement any fee changes should be. And the current recommendation is 3 months. The current recommendation is 6 months from the date of adoption. So what you can make some comments if you'd like. We discussed this one and the next one together, but would you vote yay or nay on the recommendation to adopt this, to implement the fee changes 6 months from the date of adoption?
I'd vote yay, but how are you going to deal with people that are already in the system? Are they?
So, Jim, Rod brought that up, and he voted nay. And so our notification to them would be here, I guess 4 yeas, 1 nay. Our notification would be that we would like to request, Rod said, for them to look into affordable housing, people who are in for permits for affordable housing. And I mentioned people who are already in for permit. I don't know if there's something else you wanted to add in the comments on that would be outside of just the straight up 6 months.
No, I would agree with that. Anybody that's already in the system and has applied should.
For permit.
Yes.
For permit. Okay, got it. All right, recommendation number 2. This was to talk about the method of implementing the fee structure. So the current recommendation is to phase in over 2 years with 3 increases over that 2-year time frame. We also discussed on this one, Rod and I both were in favor of a 3-year period, and Kevin commented that he thinks it's time to pay fair share, and we haven't done that for a long time, and that it doesn't need to be quite as long. So do you have any comments?
I would prefer 5 years. It's taken them 20 years to decide they wanted to raise it. What's the rush?
Okay, so your vote is, we're going to take your vote now on recommendation number 2, and it is going to be to phase in over 2 years with 3 increases over that 2-year time frame. Yay or nay?
Nay.
Okay, so this one will be 3 nays, 2 yays with notes. And the last one is, this also kind of goes along with the other 2. Recommendation number 3, how should we deal with near-term projects in progress that may be financially impacted by rate changes? So the current recommendation is there will not be any special guidelines because they are putting in place the 6-month grace period from the date of adoption. This conversation was very similar to the one on recommendation number 1. We all had a similar conversation.
I mean, I vote. With a 6-month grace period, it takes 9 months to get a permit sometimes. So I don't think that's. You got to allow anybody that's in the system not to be caught in the middle of permitting a job that they budgeted, and now all of a sudden you got a big increase.
Okay, so how would you vote on recommendation number 3, no special guidelines because of the 6-month grace period? Would you vote yay or nay?
Nay.
Okay, so that would carry with 3 yays and 2 nays. All right, did we handle that okay, Tiffany? All right, so we'll catch up here. We are on recommendation number 5, and that is about what suggestions do you have for annual reporting to improve transparency of the program? The current recommendation is that we will provide transportation impact fee distribution analysis, which shows the location of where impact fees are collected, encumbered, and expended, in addition to using heat maps. Are there any comments from committee members?
I think we should do an audit of all the money they've already collected.
That was Jim. Jim, you have to say your name before you speak in case people are just called in, just FYI.
I'm sorry.
They can probably
Jim
tell
Brown.
you.
I think we should do an audit of what they've already collected. The last time I tried to get involved in it, we couldn't figure out where the money was.
All right, are there any other comments on recommendation number 5 regarding reporting? Okay, I'll read it one last time. We're going to vote on the current recommendation, which is to provide transportation impact fee distribution analysis, which shows location of where impact fees are collected, encumbered, and expended, in addition to using heat maps. Kevin Green?
Approve.
Jim Brown?
Approve.
Rod Teachy?
Approve.
Stacy McCoy?
Approve.
Peterson votes yay. This recommendation carries with 5 yays and 0 nays. Okay, so recommendation number 6. This is about what changes would you recommend to the preliminary affordable housing exemption language? The current recommendation is 20% exemption of impact fees based on the following guidelines. A, for rental product in developments of 10 units or more. 10% of units at 60% AMI or 15% of units at 80% AMI. And then B, on for sale developments of units 10 or more, either 20% of the units at 120% AMI, 15% of units at 100% AMI, or 10% units at 10% AMI, at 80% AMI. Are there any comments from committee members?
This is Kevin. I got a question. This recommendation is silent on how long the rental units would stay affordable. Is there some expectation there?
Yes, the standard is 20 years.
So is that,
It must be affordable for 20 years.
so we can consider that implicit within this staff recommendation?
Well, it was in the full ordinance that was provided to you guys. This is
Right.
just, a snapshot of the percentage of the exemption that you guys are voting on.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments?
Yes, it's Rod Teachy.
Yes?
So first of all, in the spirit of full transparency, I do work for an affordable housing developer here in the city of Atlanta. So I just want to make that clear. But I do understand and recognize that in previous conversations amongst the committee, this ordinance is trying to be consistent with the city's current policies for providing financial subsidies and incentives for new affordable housing development in the city. And I also understand that per the current state law that if there are any exemptions given, there has to be an alternative funding source to essentially replace those exemptions. And that does cause some burden on the city to come up with those alternative funding sources. But as an affordable housing developer, I don't think that these exemptions that are proposed in this ordinance, as well as the city's overall incentives, are going to be enough to not only meet the growing demand of affordable housing in the city, but also to achieve the goals that have been stated by the current administration to preserve existing and add a new stock of affordable housing. And I think that the minimum thresholds that have been set by the existing incentives, as well as in this ordinance, are just not enough. And we actually should be rewarding those affordable housing developments that go above and beyond those thresholds that have been set, either in the percentage of units that are affordable, or even as well as the level of affordability based on the incomes of the residents. So in that regard, I would propose that those developments that exceed the minimum requirements that are currently set would actually, well, first of all, those that meet the exemptions, meet the requirements, that the exemption go from 20% to 100% for each affordable unit. And then I would also propose that developments that exceed the minimum requirements that have been established would actually get a bonus on the exemption. Again, this is all in the effort to try and incentivize more affordable housing development. And I'll just give an example. So right now, the threshold is 20%. So if a development exceeds 20% affordability, I would propose that if the affordability is somewhere between 20 and 50%, then the actual exemption be expanded from the 20% of the units to 35% of the units. If the affordability exceeds 50%, but is less than, say, like 75%, then the exemptions should apply to 75% of the units. And then if the affordability component is above 75%, then there should be 100% exemption. And again, this is all in the spirit of trying to incentivize developers to provide more affordability. And you'll find, if you do your research, that all of the developments that are built on the Beltline or using Invest Atlanta funds that are not financed with low-income housing tax credits are just meeting the bare minimums. And we're never going to make a dent and make any meaningful increase in the number of affordable housing units if we don't continue to provide additional incentives for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Are there any other comments on recommendation number 6?
I mean, this is Kevin. I appreciate Rod's perspective, particularly as somebody who's on the ground trying to make this happen. I guess my challenge, and I agree. I mean, I think a 20% exemption, particularly that just applies to the percentage that's affordable, sounds pretty paltry to me. But I also understand that there's a lot of different policy levers that can be pulled on affordability. And to Rod's point, I mean, the city's got to backfill this revenue with other sources to the extent they grant exemptions. My challenge, I guess, is that I'm no expert, but my assumption is that the city Department of Planning vetted this through Invest Atlanta and the Housing Authority and your chief housing officer and everybody else, and this is what they came up with. So I guess I find Rod's comments to be compelling, but I don't really feel equipped to opine on this one, given what I have to assume was a pretty robust scrub within the city.
Yeah, Kim or Tiffany, do you want to add anything on that?
Well, I would like to open the floor up for Jonathan Futrell. Did you want to make any comments regarding the affordability exemption language, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. Good
Thank you.
afternoon, commission members. Jonathan Futrell here in the city attorney's office. Kevin's absolutely right. We did reach out to the Office of Housing and Community Development to have discussions about what was realistic. I think, though, Rod brings up some interesting points, and we would be happy to take those back to the Office of Housing and see about the potential incentive structure, the per unit structure as well. But it was really a realistic conversation about a uniform plan that could actually be implemented. And that's where this initial proposal came from.
Thanks, Jonathan. Are there any other comments from committee members? Okay, so as a reminder, what we're voting is on the current recommendation that 20% exemption of impact fees, that we provide a 20% exemption of impact fees based on the following guidelines. Rental developments at 10 or more, 10% of units at 60% AMI, or 15% of units at 80% AMI. For sale developments of 10 units or more, 20% of units at 120% AMI, 15% at 100% AMI, and 10% of units at 80% AMI. We'll now take a vote on recommendation number 6. Kevin Green.
Sorry, approve.
Rod Teachy.
Nay.
Jim Brown.
Nay.
Stacy McCoy.
Approve.
And Malloy Peterson votes yay. So the recommendation carries with 3 yays and 2 nays, noting the various comments we had about sliding scales and additional exemptions, if that could work into the city's program. So recommendation number 6A is regarding should affordable housing, sorry, there's a little typo here. Should affordable housing exemptions apply to the entire development or just the portion that's affordable? The current recommendation is it applies only to the affordable portion. Are there any comments from committee members?
Yeah, it's Rod. I would just say, based on comments previously, I do feel like there should be some bonus incentive if you exceed the minimum thresholds currently outlined.
Okay, are there any other comments?
This is Kevin. I just don't understand how this would work if it were not applying only to the portion that's affordable. I would continue to say that it seems pretty meager. But, if you, as you said, it applied to the whole development, then, you could do 10% at 60 AMI or 20% at 68% AMI, and it's the same exemption, which doesn't make logical sense and doesn't incentivize a developer to reach on affordability.
Yeah, Malloy Peterson, I also agree. I don't agree. I mean, I don't see any way that you could just have a very tiny sliver of affordable housing and give an exemption for the entire development, especially if it's luxury apartments. So.
Yeah, just to clarify in my previous comments, you would have to meet, much more above the 20% to get additional exemption. I'm not saying someone doing just the minimum gets full exemption, but I would say if someone has, say, 75 or 80% of their units affordable, then maybe you should consider giving them 100% exemption because they've gone above and beyond what's been required to a meaningful degree.
Yeah, that's a good clarification, right?
This is Kevin. I think this is another one that could use some additional work. I can't say that I know what was done to get us to this point, but maybe at least a work session just to kind of look under the hood and see what's possible here. We're going to drive on in terms of these recommendations for now. Nothing says these can't be revisited
Thanks, Kevin.
as time allows.
This isn't our only opportunity to make changes to this in the course of the program. Okay, so we'll take a vote. This is about regarding should affordable housing exemptions apply to the entire development or just the portion that's affordable. The current recommendation is to apply the exemption only to the affordable portion. We'll now take our vote on recommendation 6A. Rod Teachy?
Nay, subject to the comments I've made previously.
Kevin Green?
Yay.
Jim Brown?
Yay.
Stacy McCoy?
Yay.
And Malloy Peterson votes yay, so the recommendation carries with 4 yays, 1 nays, noting the comments, Rod's comments and additional comments that came previous. Recommendation 6B. What changes would you recommend to the preliminary economic development exemption language? And the current recommendation is a 100% exemption for projects that meet the goals and objectives of the 2020 Economic Development and Economic Mobility Strategy. And these are retention, expansion, or location of a business within the city's south side or west side that creates at least 50 or more middle wages, FTE, full-time equivalencies, between $38,000 and $80,000 annual average salary. Or second, retention, expansion, or location of a business outside of the city's south side or west side that creates at least 200 or more middle wage FTEs between $38,000 and $80,000 average annual salary. Or third, the retention, expansion, or location of business anywhere in the city of Atlanta that creates at least 500 jobs or at least $10 million in capital investment. Are there any comments from committee members? Okay, without any comments, we'll now vote on recommendation 6B. Jim Brown?
Yay.
Kevin Green?
Yes.
Rod Teachy?
Yay.
Stacy McCoy?
Yay.
And I'm Lloyd Peterson, vote yay, so the recommendation carries with 5 yeas, 0 nays. Our last recommendation, number 7. Would you consider reducing the size of the service areas or using council districts as service areas? The current recommendation is to maintain the current 3 service areas. Those are the north side, the west side, and the south side. Are there any comments from committee members? I'll make a comment here. I will say that when I started this process, I just really couldn't understand how we could only have 3 for the city. I mean, especially it really bothered me that there weren't 4 because I like north, south, east, and west. But through much discussion about the need to improve one specific area of town, you have to improve the streets around it. I know we had a lot of conversation about this through our, however long we've been doing this, a year or a year plus. And I now understand that we need these larger service areas to accomplish projects at any significant size. So I would like to put my support behind it. Any other comments? Okay, we'll now vote on recommendation number 7. Kevin Green,
Support, yes.
Rod Teachy,
Yes.
Jim Brown,
Yes.
Stacy McCoy,
Yay.
and I'm Lloyd Peterson, vote yay. Recommendation carries with 5 yeas and 0 nays. So thank you. I know that was a lot, and it was also the culmination of a lot of work. Thank you. For our next agenda item, we have the City Planning Department prepared to discuss the next steps to final adoption of the updated impact fee study draft.
All right, thank you. Our goal is to finalize the ordinance and have it adopted by March with the following as a tentative timeline. As previously mentioned, we did receive approval from DCA on the impact fee study update. So with that, our next milestone is to conduct a council work session, which is scheduled for February 11th. On February 23rd, we look forward to going before CDHS for vote to move forward to full council for adoption. And on March 1st is when we plan to go before full council for hopefully favorable adoption of the new ordinance.
Thanks. Is that information posted on the website, Tiffany? People are tracking?
The February 11th council work session is posted. That was posted recently. The February 23rd CDHS meeting and March 1st are not yet posted as far as us being on the agenda.
All right, thanks. Are there any other follow-ups or unfinished business from the December 16th, 2020 meeting?
Yes, I would like to provide follow-ups from our previous meeting. It was requested by you, Madam Chair, mentioning to clarify the meaning of equivalent acres in the parks level of service section in the impact study draft. I wanted to provide an update that information will be updated on the final draft. Also, Madam Chair, you inquired if we were able to create a digitally interactive heat map. Unfortunately, at this time, that capability doesn't exist, but we are working towards other options. So I'll definitely keep the committee posted. Also, committee member Kevin Green recommended replacing the word may with shall in the economic development language. Again, as an update, that language has been updated to reflect your recommendation. We also received public comment from Ms. Kate Little with Georgia Stand Up, advising that the estimated 2020 population listed in the impact fee study draft was below the population listed in other city documents. I would like to note that the final impact fee study draft will acknowledge the current population and will provide a rationale on the population that's used in the study. Also, Ms. Little inquired, is there a way to ensure that Atlanta citizens will receive job priority consideration for jobs created on projects based on the economic development exemption? Currently, there is not a process in place to ensure that type of job consideration. However, it is still under review. And again, I will keep the committee and the public notified. And lastly, Ms. Little also inquired how to ensure the 20-year affordable housing standard. In order to ensure that standard, we will create a new land use restrictive agreement to ensure that the 20-year affordability standard is maintained. I would also like to invite everyone to join us on February 11th at 10 o'clock a.m. for the Impact Fee Study Update Council work session. Also, committee members, please be on the lookout for future communication regarding the financial disclosure process, which begins March 1st. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes all follow-ups and announcements.
All right, thank you. Well, we would like to thank everybody for their work on this committee, delivering the first update to the impact fee study and ordinance since 1993.
Hey, Malloy, I got a question. This is
Sure.
Kevin. Where did we end up on number 2, the phase in?
On our vote, we had 3 nays and 2 yays.
Okay, so the role of this committee is just to up or down these things and not to suggest alternatives?
Right, that's what Tiffany, you want to say anything? I think we can only vote.
Yeah, so today we're just voting on the staff recommendations that are in place. However, your feedback and all of the rationales you guys gave today will be considered and will be discussed to see how we move forward with the ordinance.
Got it. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Oh, no worries.
Great question. Okay, so we've come to the end of our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn and to complete the exiting roll.
Malloy, or Madam Chair, this is Matt Westmoreland. Can I make one comment before you guys adjourn?
Sure.
I just want to say thank you to the 5 of you for your service and to the team here at the city for your work. I have a very vivid memory as a 6-year-old of being very excited for these impact fees that were going to be updated 27 years from that day. So thanks a lot for your service to the city, and I'm excited to see this move forward in February and March. So appreciate it.
Thank you. You're probably the only 6-year-old in Atlanta that may have been true about. Thank you for your comments. It's been a pleasure. I know I will speak for all 5 of us to say that we all learned a lot during this process. It was like a PhD in impact fees. So thank you. And thanks, the staff has been incredibly supportive and incredibly responsive and very helpful towards our education. So we've come to the end of the agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn and complete the exiting roll call.
Motion to adjourn. Kevin Green.
Jim Brown, second.
Seeing that we have a second, we'll take a vote to adjourn. Jim Brown,
Adjourn.
Rod Teachy,
Approve.
Kevin Green,
Adjourn.
and Stacy McCoy.
Adjourn.
I vote yea to adjourn. The motion carries 5 yeas, 0 nays. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you on February 11th. Thank you.
Yes, thank you and take care. Stay safe.
Thanks. See you.
Thanks, everybody.
Tim, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.